Hi, I'm going to work on Claire's eyes, and I'm going to show you a little trick that I used to use on eyes all the time. I don't so much now, but there's still a good place for it. And although her eyes aren't screaming for this process, I'm in the mood to do it. So I have here, I have this little bit of leftover grayish stuff that we mixed, that I was floating into bits of her skin here and there. Let's see, yeah. And I want that on her overall eyes right here. In fact, I might just float a little of it on top of some of the pinks even, so they won't be too pink. Let's see, you see how I'm just touching that and I keep doing it? What I'm doing is I'm adding little bits more of liquid as I do this, so the color becomes a little deeper, a little stronger. So I'm not doing like brushing and blending. Oh, if I could get some of y'all to blend less, I would be so happy for you. Okay, let's see. Let's put some more. See, this is pretty weak. It's just kind of a blue-gray. Remember, we didn't keep these eyes white earlier. Well, now that looks a little stronger here, and now I think that's too strong. See, I'll put a little in here and here. So I'm going to pull a little up out of this one. See, I could just adjust my color. So easy to do. Okay, that's a beginning. We could use a little more shadow right in here. Why don't I just, well, I've got this little bit of color mixed. Why don't I just touch in a tiny, oh gosh, that's the tiniest bit, but a little bit goes a real long ways. Now this area right down here needs to be a lot cooler, and it's not near dark enough. In fact, I don't know that I've got anywhere on here as dark as I'm going to finish it out. Oh, well, that looks pretty strong now. I'm working on dry paper here. I'm going to pull this on over here. So the upper lip tends to be cooler. That is less pink than the rest of the, or than many other parts of the face. Okay, so you see I've pulled quite a bit up. The major difference in value in the photo, if you squint at it, between the value right here on the upper lip and the value on the thumb, they're actually very, very close, but the color's quite different. Okay, so let's get that dry. Frequently, there will be a shadow under the upper lid, but in this particular lighting that's very diffused in front of her, even though we've got strong backlighting, there's really not much. You can see, though, right here, should I hold that up this way? Right here at the edge of her eye, there is more shading right there. There might be a little more there, I don't know, not much, but there's a little more shading right there. Just like you would shade the outside of a ball sometimes if you were, well, doing that. Okay, so I'm going to pick up a little more of that same gray color. Now this is dry, so I'm adding this to, I'm going to dull all of this area. This whole area is going to have to go darker at some point. Not the eyeball, but the skin around here is going to get more color. So I'm going to take that, and then I'm going to take my little brush, turn it sideways, and it's got very little water on it because I really don't want that to flow everywhere. I just want it to be a little deeper right over there. Well, I don't know if I've accomplished that. Yeah, I have. There it is. So squeeze my brush out. And I think I'm actually going to use a hairdryer on this right now just to make sure it stays right where I put it. For those of you who are working at home, you can take advantage of that because you can use that hairdryer. Sometimes if you've got a difficult area and you want it to be smooth, you can hit it with that hairdryer right away and stop the action. It doesn't work in the classroom very well. Okay, so now let's look at the color of her eyes. And you'll have to pull up your copy and really study it because you really can't see that much here. But I can see all kinds of color in there. I can see some, she has brown eyes, but there's some reflected bits of sort of a blue-gray in there. So I think that's what I'm going to work with. Let's pick up a pigment that is not going to, that's going to be staining. I need a staining pigment. So I'm going to go to my, let's see, I need a clean spot. Let's get a new plate. I'm going to go to my Prussian Blue, which is already muted a little bit for us. That's probably not enough, though. So let's pick up the colors that we've been working with because they're wet and they're handy. It's not that you couldn't use something else. I'm going to put it over here. I better pick that up with my flat brush. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of, let's pick up a little bit of Quin Gold. There. Okay, so let's do a mixture here that gives us sort of, well, it's an orange. It's sort of that peachy look, but you lose some of the peachy look when you're working with Quin Gold. Let's put it right over here. Let's pull a little bit into our blue. I don't want the blue to be too loud, but I do want something decidedly blue. And I want this to be a really wet, juicy application because I want it to set in the paper. Let's see, is that camera? Okay. Be careful that you don't start enlarging the irises of the eye. Okay, it's real easy as you work to start making this a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. I did that on a painting of one of my grandsons many years ago and suddenly realized he looked like a puppy. So naturally I had to go back and fix that. I've got hair that overlaps the eye right there. So I'm going to paint around that, I think. You could make that whole if you wanted to. But you notice that this is far from round. You know, our mindset is to make these round, and they are round, but it depends on the angle at which you're looking at them. Okay, there. And I was careful not to get too, high up under the eye and start to enlarge it by going up into the eyelid. You're less likely to make that mistake if you don't have that shadow under the eye. So right there. Oh, that's a nice color. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to let that set and soak in. While it's soaking, what else to do? There's so much, and I really didn't think about it enough. I've got a little bit of, this is just a little bit of our original color. See how peachy it is? This was Naples yellow and quin coral. I'm going to use some, I'm going to add more quin coral, and I'm going to add New Gamboge. New Gamboge is a nice clean, a nice clean yellow. If you use Quin Gold, you know, it has sort of an acidic look that is just a little bit too, well, what's the right word? It's just bites too much. It's too harsh. And let's just take a touch of cerulean into this. Oh, there's cerulean. Let's see. Because I'm going to put this in some shadows under the, here on this hand. There's quite a deep shadow under here. And even though it goes and you can look at it and you could say, oh, well, that's black. Well, it's really dark. I don't know that I'd call it black, but it's really dark. It probably looks black on the video too. But here's the thing. That's hand in under there. And so all the reflected light in under there and everything has warmth in it. And so you want your, whatever dark you're going to build up on top of it, you want a warm undercolor. I'm using my days in printing to work with this, to think about this. So I'm going to put in, keeping that, now this is pretty juicy still, because I'm going to come back and soften this edge right away. Now if I get too much water in it, it'll all float up and just make a new edge, a new hard edge, and we don't want a hard edge. So let's pull that edge up, and I've got less water in the brush this time. But what I want you to notice is, and I'm stroking here, I'm kind of tickling it along, but what I want you to notice is that I am not using pressure at all, and I am not brush, 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 working. Look at this spot right here on the hand. This whole area is cool. Of course, this up here is cool too, but I'm not doing those yet. This whole area is cool. I'm going to take that last little bit of gray I had left here. Oh, gee, there's almost none of it. I guess I'll have to make more. Let's just use, this is cerulean, and I'm just going to add a tiny bit there. Okay, so, you know, sometimes I can't talk. If I'm really concentrating, it's really hard to talk, explain what you're doing, and paint at the same time if you're really focused. If you're not having to focus a lot, then it's different. Okay, and I'm just going to pull that around like that. There. Hard edge as it comes up to the thumb. That may look a little too exaggerated, but when we're through, it won't be. Okay, this is soaked in, all it's going to soak in. So now I think it would be okay to go ahead and dry it. Oh, wait a minute. What I could do is, yeah, I'm going to dry it. It's better already just not having those empty eyeballs. That was kind of freaky. So here's another thing. If I really want to set paint into the paper, and of course this applies to situations where you don't have a lot of thick, heavy color down. But if I really want to set it so it doesn't go anywhere, I've got this dry now, and I'm going to add water on top of the eyeballs. I mean, on top of the irises. Doesn't have a pupil in there yet. Brown eyes, you won't see much of the pupil, usually. And so I've got water standing on that. I'm going to let that sit and soak in again. And then when it's soaked in, I'm going to dry it, and then I'll be back. Okay, we're back. So I let the sheen go off, and then I dried it really hard. And let's pick up some, I guess I'll use burnt umber. Just plain old burnt umber. I pulled it up. It's fairly strong. It's still soupy. You rarely ever do I work with watercolor dry. There are times and techniques that are fun to do with it, almost like it's out of the tube, but that's not the norm. All right, so now I'm going to fill this area in with burnt umber. Burnt umber comes up pretty easily, and that's another reason for using it. You notice, see, this seems to have a shape. It's almost like the iris is a little, it's not pointy, but it's a little squished in this way. And that's just the angle at which you're looking at it. You just really, really need to watch those things and not slip into going around. I'm being very careful about these edges. All right, now guess what we do now? We let it dry naturally, and then we come back to it. Because I've used burnt umber here and it comes up so easily, I may not even need a lifting brush. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm now going to pull up some of the color. Well, not getting quite as much glow as I want, but you're not. This works really great with light colored eyes. Oh my gosh, it's just a gorgeous thing. Her eyes are really brown, and she's also kind of in shadowed light, so we're not going to get as much happening here. If I had lighter colored eyes, I'd already be using a lifting brush. I think I'm going to use the lifting brush a little bit. Here's the thing. When I first discovered doing this, it was because I kept messing up and trying to change the eyes. And I discovered that the more I worked and scrubbed on the eyes, the better they got, which is pretty opposite of what I'd want you to do anywhere else on a watercolor. Anywhere. Never, never. But here it seems to work. So I think I'm going to pull up a little extra. I've got kind of a light spot on here where the paint didn't stick as well. Okay. We'll just go with this for now. Wasn't quite what I wanted, but it's not bad. So we're going to be putting brown back in, but this is our base. Okay, make sure when you blot that you're on a clean spot. Look, here's spots in here too. I don't know what's causing that. Some little flaw in the paper or something. Okay, clean spot there. All right, that'll do. This is not the miraculous unveiling that happens when you've got eyes of a different color, but it'll do. So now I'm looking. There's a lot more shadow on the eyeball here than there is here. And we're not going to go as dark as what you see here, maybe. Or maybe we are. I think I want a little more gray on those eyeballs. You see, that's a very modified gray. It's just a little bit on the blue side. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be... See, now that we've got some dark color in here, what looked like it was enough isn't. Oh, let's pull some of that out into here, because otherwise it's quite a shock. You know, I think that that's just a little bit too blue. I'm going to put just a touch of something else in here. Got a little bit of orange right there that I mixed the gray with. I'm going to touch in just a little of it. There. Okay, that suits me. So let's go back and let's pick up our gray from right there. I'm being a little more picky about this than I usually am when I'm demonstrating. So I hope you'll bear with me if this gets a little too tedious. Okay, see, I've got a lot of shadow under here because there's going to be a lot of other shadow in here. We're nowhere near through, but now we've got some darks in there. We can tell where we're going. So the next step would be to dry this. I really want to get that area just a little bit darker. Right in over here. Whoa, that's a lot darker. Okay, dry brush, squeezed out a lot because this whole area is already wet and I just want to soften that edge. See, this color stands out against the peaches in the skin. And it bothers me right now, but I think it's going to be just about right later. Want just a little bit more color right there. Well, it's not taking it right now. I just have to do that at a later date. All right. So the idea is to put a little bit of glow in here. And like I said, if you're doing this with blue eyes or maybe a dog's yellow eyes or something, you can get this wonderful inner glow that just makes them come alive. Here it's just so-so. It's not as exciting. It still works, but it's not as exciting. So this is not the finished eye. This is just part of what I go through to get life in the eyes. I'll be back as soon as that dries. Okay, you can see how even without the highlights and the shadows in her eyes yet, they seem to have a little extra life in them. And you'll notice that when I lifted, of course, I wasn't able to lift all the way to the edges as much. And so you get this a little bit darker rim, which you actually really see in eyes. So that's all good. Now let's do just a little bit more on them. I'm not going to put all the finishing touches on the eyes yet. But let's see. We have highlights. I'm going to fold this. We have highlights here. And one of the things I would ask you to study the highlights in the eyes before you put them in. There is one here that is, there are 3 highlights on this eye. And one of them is brighter than the other 2. These 2 are pretty grayed down. This one is not like bright white. And if you put really bright white in this shadowed context, it won't look right. So what we're going to start out doing is just filling in some more brown and leaving some highlights. I don't want to fill in so much that I lose this light inside the eyes. But I have to do some. I think, you know what? I think I'll go to this really pointy brush. And I've got the same color. It's still, part of it's still soupy. So I get, see, I dip it down there, kind of load the brush up, and then I'm kind of taking some of it off. And I'll see what happens. This may or may not be the right way to load this brush for this. It's close to the right way, but I'm going to see. Now here's the edge of the eye. I've got a little bit of color up there on that lid. So there's a highlight here, shaped kind of like that. And the thing too is that if you paint around something like this, like I just did, you might get the highlight too small, which I just did. I'll come back and lift that later. Let's make this one, let's shoot to make this a little bit too large. Whoop, I don't think it is. Okay, now let's fill in some. I don't want to totally fill in. Now right here in the center there would be pupil that would be making this darker. Well, see, I've covered it up pretty much. I think I'm going to pull a tiny bit of that up just because I want my lights in the eye. And I'm going to have to come back over here and lift some too, to lift the highlights in better. Yeah, let's just make this a little bit weaker. There's that spot that's just not taking color the same as the rest of it. I just don't know what's going on with the paper. Okay, all of those are too small. I'm going to have to lift them. Let's come over here and do the other one. So you can see right over here, there is a highlight that barely shows through the hair right there on the very edge. And then here's a highlight here. A lot of the time I like to make a highlight bridge the transition between the white of the eye and the iris of the eye. But we just don't have that in this situation, so I'm not going to try to do it. Let's make this one way bigger so it'll show up. And then over there, I always underestimate the size. Well, hi. She's got a little sparkle in her eyes, and now I'm going to go ahead and take my tiny lifting brush. You notice it's not round, it's a flat, because it kind of braces itself. If I can take it longwise, it works better. Just leave it at that. So I think I'll do a little bit of lifting with this. But here's the thing, if I don't like how I lift it, I can put more burnt umber in, and I can do it again. I may paint into those, paint in some more darks, because I really didn't do it just right. Okay, see, that's going to look a little funny. I'll make a little bit lighter area right there. Now, I've kind of scrubbed that kind of hard, so I can make like crisp edges back around this later if I want to. And I'll work with it some more before this is finished. But for right now, I'll just do this. Okay, let's leave it there for now. Like that little spot right up there, that's too bright, too close to the too close to the lid, where there's going to be some shadow. Turn this off. Okay, so let's put some other color in around here and get a little depth into this. And it's just a little early to put lashes in there yet, but what I might do, I might just take some of my, my peach color here, and I might use, maybe I'll use a little bit of this, wait a minute, that's not it. Oh dear. I'll use a little bit of Prussian Blue. Just because it's going to stay put better than cerulean. It's also a lot more potent. So, I'm pushing almost a brownie mixture here. Very light brown mixture. Boy, that's just a tiny spot there. It doesn't take much sometimes. In fact, I might want to use the other brush. I'm going to go over the crease in this eyelid. That's a little, no, I guess that's okay. And let's see, where else? Now the lashes, are going to come down here. I'm not doing them yet. I want this area to show up more. You know what? I need this little fine brush for this. Friends talked me into ordering these, and come to really like it. Okay, I don't want it to be too red. Is that too red? I'm not sure. Let's just put a little more Quin Gold in here. And I think I want a little more blue. I just keep messing with it. I got too much yellow in it. There we go. See, you just play with it. You just play with it till you get what you need. When you're working with tiny amounts like this, it's really easy because you can see the color better there because you don't have a deep slushy thing of water, which really distorts the way that you perceive it. So I'm going to put this photo real close to where I'm working. I think that's still a little bit too red. Here's where our eyelash goes, and here's the lower lid. Because at this angle, we see a lot of the lower lid there in this part of the eye, but then when we get over to here, we're not seeing the lower lid. Okay. I want to bring that down and enlarge that eye a little bit. So I don't know if I should have done that. I shouldn't have done that. I made her tear duct too big. Well, let's see if we can take it out. Yeah, because it's still wet enough. So come back to that later. Let's take a little more of this same mixture. Let's come over here. So we're going to have, again, we're going to have some lashes here. See all of this where the tear duct is, and in here all of that's darker than what I have it now. And that little crease under the eye, it shouldn't be as dark, but it should be there. Okay. And then here we're going to have the hair in here. So, this little soft brown, just make a few. I'm going to just make lash strokes here because it's really easier to get it light and I can actually see them. It's not that you need to put that much detail in the eyebrow. In fact, I want to dampen it and kind of smudge it up there because I don't want it to just be about individual hairs, but there are some there, and my pencil marks are still there with individual hairs, and I guess they're going to stay. Here, there's probably some hair showing there that is tinting, you know, some real fine hair that is tinting the skin here. You're not seeing the individual hairs, but it's a little darker there. So we'll just put a little bit more in there. See, her eyes are coming around. Now remember, we don't have lashes in. I don't want to put lashes in until I get a little closer to being finished with the painting. Because if I want to make some changes, as I'm doing right here, I'm deepening this shadow right here. I don't want to mess with, once I get the lashes in, I don't want to mess with that area. So if you go in a hurry because it's going to make it prettier and you want to see it prettier, and so you go and you do more to it, this is not the best way to work with a brush. I'm kind of scrubbing, but I'm scrubbing so gently with that little deeper area there, and then with this spot right here to be a little bit lighter. You know, I used to go back and fix a lot of things by lifting, and I still do occasionally, but I try to do less of it. So you see, I could come in there and lift that area, but I think we're good. We're going to need more cools in here around the eyes, and this area right here, this looks too harsh. This looks mechanical. So I've got to figure out what I need to do there. Because that is a darker edge there. But it's just, I think what's happening is, you see this deeper value right in there, and it's a little lighter right here on that edge. That is signaling a curve. And this isn't enough darker than that, and it's not signaling the curve. And then right down here, I think I need to change that a little bit. You know, I'm going to think on that a while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish up this lesson by just working on the nose a little bit more. Let's take a little bit of our coral. See, that's just pretty much pure coral over here. You see how weak that wash is? Right here on the nose, there is a pinker area. There's a little bit of shadow, and it's pinker. This is where you don't want that hard dark line. You just want that little bit of pink. And then I'm going to soften the edges on it. This is a baby. And all of that should be very, very soft. Okay, let's use a little bit more of it. This area over here is cooler, looks bluer. I think I'm going to go ahead with a little bit of red. I may add blue to it later. I may layer. So what I'm doing is, as I'm doing this, I'm plumping her cheeks up. Now we need more pink out here on this part of the cheek, for sure. That's all this. Oh, my goodness, Anne, are you really doing that? Well, I'm not sure. Remember, I've got coral here. And the beauty of coral is that it's very workable. If I was doing this with rose, I might have pre-wet the area first. And see, this is going to have to get a little bluer in here. So, what I really want in that spot, I really want to pull a little up. Yeah, there, see that little bit of highlight right there? That's in the picture. It's very subtle. But that's a pretty, it's so nuanced. I think I want just a little more pink right there. Yeah, I do. So a lot of the time, I want to see it and see if it's really what I thought, if it's really going to do what I thought it was going to do. Here, this is super pale. The only thing is I got to have a soft edge right there. See, sometimes I can do this better with a flat. Okay, so we've got some curve, and we need to build in a little curve there, and I think I'm going to go ahead and go with the pink first, and I may put some cool, something bluish on top of it later. So I'm going to pull down and make a shape right there. Okay, soften the edges. Again, because I'm working with coral, this is a lot safer to do. The coral will be more luminous in the end too. Okay. So now we've got that little bit of reflected light there that balances with this. I don't think I have it quite the right shape yet though. I think I need the red to come a little bit over here as we come down the nose. So I'm going to, again, soften that. This is so subtle. Hope this shows up on the video. There. Okay, so see her face is coming together there. Let's also put, even though this is a cooler area, we need a little more color in here. And I don't want to go too blue. So let's do that. Okay, see now that little area right there, that's the major thing in the painting as far as a likeness and as far as just looking like a human. It's so easy to distort these. That's all. So, trying to remember to do this. Okay, there we go. See you again soon.